I see pushes towards authoritarianism from both parties, and that makes me uncomfortable because it makes the choice of what to do with our country all the more difficult.
Both parties.
Well, I mean, when you're giving the government more power to control capital, you're giving them more power to like implement authoritarian practices.
I don't know. My opinion, it definitely weighs one way more than the other.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that was your opinion, but I mean, and yeah, I mean, I see Republican authoritarianism. I mean, every once in a while Trump says something really fucking stupid, like, "Oh, you should go to jail for burning the flag" and stuff like that. And yeah, it reeks of authoritarianism, undeniable. But I have a hard time even talking about what's going on with the federal agent stuff, necessarily calling that authoritarianism, because a lot of those rules haven't like creeped in a particular way. They're still being used the way they were intended to be used when they were implemented. I mean, rights for terrorists have been taken away for a while. That isn't anything put under Trump. And the only thing he did was he called Antifa a terrorist organization. So you automatically don't get rights if you're associated with them.
Yeah, but those federal agents weren't just targeting Antifa organization.
But you don't know that.
But you don't know that either.
Yeah, but we never knew that when those federal agents targeted somebody because they don't have rights. Like that's the thing. I don't think that's right, but what I'm trying to explain to you is that rule that if you're attached to a terrorist, you don't have a rights is not something that's creeped up. That's been active in the United States government for over a decade.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's like a creeping authoritarianism. It was an authoritarian element that was already there, and we're not putting in any effort to remove it. Because why would you? It's advantageous to the people in power. And that's basically my problem with giving the government power is it's never the person who puts it that way that abuses it. It's always the next person.
Yeah. True.
And yeah, I don't know. Plus, like, there is a calculation to be made on whether or not stuff like that is preferable to cities being trashed by people who clearly don't want to cooperate. Like, once again, it's not even about protests anymore. It's about it's about the people who are actually doing the trashing, not lumping them in with anybody. You know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. If there's ever a time and a place for authoritarianism, which there rarely is, it would be when you're violating a law.
No. No.
I'm saying directed specifically at that person, not broad authoritarianism directed at everybody because a law is being broken.
Policing and violating laws have... Enforcing the law has nothing to do with authoritarianism.
Well, it does a little bit because cops have authority over citizens.
But that's not authoritarianism.
And define it for me.
Authoritarianism is blatant rule over a group or a population, not policing and...
Isn't that totalitarianism?
I suppose, yeah. That would be a totalitarianism. So what is your definition of authoritarianism?
Well, from what I understand, authoritarianism and totalitarianism are very similar, but the prime difference is in totalitarianism, it's complete control over every aspect of somebody's life, like you would almost see in like USSR or something like that.
The enforcement or advocacy of
strict... Is this authoritarianism?
Yep, of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom.
Yeah, okay, so that literally could mean, so like, that could literally mean a law. And what I mean by that is there are laws that essentially sacrifice freedoms for safety. For example, there's tons of things we could do that would make the country undeniably safer that would take away freedoms. But there comes a certain limit where doing that's no longer worth it. Like, I had armed guards on every crosswalk and like intersection in a city. No doubt that would stop crime if there was just freaking snipers' nest everywhere. But like, is that worth it? No. You get what I'm saying? So
still don't I still don't
You don't understand
understand
how I'm linking it to the
Yeah.
other thing? Well, like, okay.
enforcing the law. Like,
Okay, well, we basically have to decide where the line of, like, what's acceptable authoritarianism and what's unacceptable authoritarianism is. Because, like it or not, the presence of a police force is inherently authoritarian. Because the opposite of authoritarian, I can't talk, dude.
Mhm.
Authoritarianism is anarchism, right?
yep.
Which is, like, obviously people doing things for themselves and for their communities without being monitored. So policing in itself is authoritarian. No way around it. Laws in itself are authoritarian. If you have to be told what to do and there's a consequence for not doing
But
that thing,
more people have a say over these laws. Like, laws are there for a reason and become a
well,
part of the rule of law for
no, yeah, there's good
based
laws.
on elected
There's
officials.
good laws. I'm
And
not.
policing too. Like,
But what I'm
like
getting,
what we're seeing right now. You are dismantling police force and reforming police forces all around. If this was so authoritarian,
I'm trying to make you realize that authoritarianism and authoritarian elements aren't bad by default. They're bad when they overstep. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay,
Like, there's a limit.
Okay.
Like, too much of one thing can be a bad thing, but the right amount of a thing can be a very good thing.
Okay.
It's like that with authoritarianism too.
Okay.
And I mean, this is something that I've kind of been realizing a little bit more over the year. I still don't like it. I hate interacting with cops. I really do. It's not fun.
Mhm.
It makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, there's really not much more to it than that. It makes me feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
because you're at the freaking will
Yeah.
of somebody else who has more authority than you
Yeah.
inherently.
Mhm.
And but like you said, laws, there are good laws, and I think a lot of the laws that prevent people from rioting, for instance, are laws that are kind of needed. So when something's been going on for months and months on end, and it's no longer just like it's just hard for me to view a lot of that stuff as just like protest at this point, when there's people who are clearly making problems consistently, and it's been going on long enough where I think I trust the cops a little bit in knowing who the people who are stirring up these problems repeatedly probably are. Granted, does that mean that their precision with whom they're arresting is accurate 100% of the time? Definitely not.
yeah,
And
but okay, I'll say to this: these I'm going to go back to the federal agents.
yeah,
You're going to deploy this, like you say, authoritarian strategy, I suppose,
yeah, that's one way to put it.
and you're doing it because they're violating a law that, I don't know, they're rioting. Yes,
Well,
they are.
essentially, when they violate the law in ways like that, it actually, like, you could even make the argument that it oppresses people who are not violating the law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Like, yeah, it brings those peaceful protesters in harm's way.
Yeah, it's basically what
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. Yeah.
You get 75-year-old veterans getting tear gas and shot with rubber bullets.
Yeah, and I mean, would I like the freaking government forces that come in to try to shut these people down to be more precise and to basically execute their job flawlessly? Of course, but they don't, and this is all the more reason why people need to understand that a consequence of being disorderly is the fact that the people who are coming in are going to cause more damage and try and clean up your mess.
Did it solve the problem, though?
No, because the people don't. That's not enough to stop people at this point.
Because
I mean, it was an attempt to solve the problem. Clearly, it didn't work, though.
yeah, because if you look at Portland, as soon as the federal agents leave, everything calmed down.
Yeah, but you can use that argument, but was it calm before the federal agents showed up? Not really.
Yeah, true. But did they solve it?
I mean,
Was,
I could.
when
I
was
could
it at
make,
when was it at its peak, though?
Probably when the federal agents were there, because people were getting really like upset about that, because
Yeah.
and I'm sure there was people who weren't even out there who came out specifically because of that reason, and also you had people who maybe were already getting possibly, I'm going to use the word tired of protesting, but I don't know if that's the most accurate thing, who were probably reinvigorated with their cause when they saw federal agents show up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense to me why that would be the peak, but like, I could make a philosophical argument for, even if them arriving was the peak of unruliness, that if there was unruliness before and no unruliness after, you could make the argument that bringing it to that peak with federal agents and then withdrawing them actually did solve the problem. Do you get what I'm saying?
No.
I mean, I listen.
Because I think I could say with confidence that if the federal agents remained there, things wouldn't have calmed down.
Probably not, but if they would have never sent them, would have things calmed down? They weren't, like, do you get what I'm saying? We don't know. And if we're going off of just the data we have, the fact that it didn't calm down for like a while and they had to send them and it only calmed down after they left, it's almost like it was a trick to get them to calm down. Do you get what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I suppose.
They complain about something, you put a bigger authoritarian threat in there. Because what are they complaining about before the authoritarians got there? Authoritarians, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
And they put authoritarians there, and then they got really mad, and then they removed those, and now they're chill again.
Sounds messed up, though, doesn't it?
It is a little messed up. And I'm, like, once again, I'm just trying to observe the actions and assess, basically, the effectiveness of that, and basically why they would do that. And I don't really know where I sit in agreement with all this, but I'm just saying that, I don't know, you know firsthand that I've lost a decent amount of sympathy for the people who are just basically trying to keep the problems going. And it's not even about, like, I'm not trying to say shut the fuck up and don't fight for what you believe in. I believe you can fight for whatever you want in the United States, but I do think there are productive ways to do that and unproductive ways to do that. And I think if you do it in an unproductive way, you're only hurting your cause. Not only are you hurting your cause, if you're doing it in a violent, disorderly way that's in a place with a lot of people during a pandemic, might I add, it also is not like a very safe thing, you know what I mean? And it's hard for me to support something that's extremely unsafe.
I don't know.
And once again, it does not apply to people who are just protesting or people who are trying to actually like start a decent grassroots political movement. But I don't think of grassroots political movements when I see people like freaking throwing like bombs into buildings and crap in downtown Portland, and people like pulling people out of cars and shit. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why you gotta keep them separate.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there a lot of the people in those movements muddy the waters too, and then obviously the people who are opposing them also muddy the waters. And truth be told, there probably is a little overlap between the group, but there's overlap, but the same way that there's overlap between bad groups and good groups on basically every side of things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I have no problem keeping a nuanced opinion about both of the groups, but I understand why other people would, and I think if you want people to have a more nuanced opinion about your groups, you should probably do a better job at maintaining the nuance yourself.